Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, we are recording the intro after recording the episode, and that was an awesome episode.
It was. This feels like an outro, even though it's still an intro. But yes, that was such a, I think we talked with them for 40 minutes, and I think the information that came out of it is so needed right now, especially in a time when people are trying to grow our listeners are trying to grow their personal wealth or add units, and they can't just because they're lacking the inventory or lacking the ability to buy that next building.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do, whether it's appealing taxes, doing something with the utilities, looking at these different incentive programs, like are you getting your renewals out in a timely manner. What are you doing to best optimize the property? Even if you just have 1-3 unit, what are you doing to best optimize it? And I think we lose sight of that because everyone's chasing units.
Yeah, I think it becomes focus time then too. So you have to almost plan to spend the time to take these different steps that you're just kind of rambling off there. I think there's just so many ways that you could take your current asset and make it perform better. And sometimes it even is at the tenant gets the win too, or the resident gets the win, or the neighbor gets the win, or the neighborhood gets the win. So a lot of stuff that you could be doing right now when you can't find a building, or maybe you don't even have the down payment for the next building, or you can't get financing for the next building yet because you're waiting on some certain life event. These are things that we talk about today that you could be doing right now with what you already own.
Yeah, 100%. The other cool thing about this episode is, affordability and affordable housing is a huge issue in Chicago. Assessor Kaegi uses the term ideology a lot. Like, there's a lot of ideology. Oh, we need to help this. We need to do this. This is actually something that gets it done, right? And it's not like an us versus them mentality. It's something along the lines of, hey, like, you will actually have a more profitable building by having affordable housing. And it's like, oh, they finally found a way to actually incentivize owners and developers to have affordable housing. Even if they don't think it's a huge issue, well, it's going to help my bottom line. So let's go down the path.
The other awesome thing about this episode, I think, was all of the reference points that Assessor pointed out, the links, the information that we could be looking at before we buy buildings, or we could look at how things were calculated for our tax bill. I think there's a lot of information or misinformation out there that he was able to really pinpoint where we could go for the facts.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What's our housing provider tip of the week? Let's jump in here.
All right. Housing provider tip of the week. I mean, we're going to run right with this, with what the theme of the show today, and it's around property tax. So if you haven't bought your building yet, or you currently own your building, and you're in Cook County especially, like you need to make sure that you are appealing your property taxes. I always tell people, you might not get a reduction 2 or 3 out of the 5 years you do it, but those 2 years you do it will make sure you stay in line for the next 5 years, because the taxes will continue to go up. And if you're not always on top of that, then all of a sudden you have a higher basis than your neighbor, and you'll struggle. Again, it's cuts in your bottom line, and it ultimately will lower your value on a cap rate basis when you're trying to sell. So make sure you are always considering your taxes. We have a couple episodes we can reference to for that, but it's very important, and it's something along the lines we talk about today.
Yeah, and if for those who are doing rehabs, you can file for vacancy. If you don't have tenants in the building, you're doing work, that is a huge drop. It's a 1-year hit, right? You will go back to the normal number, but you'll get that relief for the 1 year, and it's doesn't really cost you much to do it. Go ahead and file.
It's $4,000, $5,000, $7,000, $9,000 depending on the building, and that basically covers your carry costs sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So our guest today, we 2 returning guests, 2 powerhouses. Probably don't even need introductions here, but we have the Cook County Assessor, who was on episode 151, Assessor Kaegi, and the President and CEO of CIC from episode 94 as well, Stacie Young. So Assessor Kaegi, Stacie Young, welcome back to the show. Let's jump on in. All right. So we'd like to welcome you guys both back to the show. It's cool to have 2 returning guests here. So before we jump into the Affordable Housing Special Assessment Program, which is something that I'm actually going through with a property that Jeff Weinberg and I own together. We're actually going through this right now. So it's a very relevant episode for me. Before going there, Assessor Kaegi, can you just give us the 101 on how Cook County property taxes are assessed? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Absolutely, Tom. Our system here in Illinois is different from a lot of states, from a lot of people, what a lot of people expect for how it works. And sometimes the terminology is the same as in other states. So it's a great opportunity. So in our state, in Illinois, we do it differently from other states. In other states, you have how your property is assessed, and then it's multiplied by a local fixed rate. And then you figure out what your property tax bill is. And then you're done. You don't have to worry about how other people are assessed. You don't have to worry about how rates can float. But if property values go up, generally in the place that you're living, more and more and more property taxes are collected. In this state, it's different. We determine the budgets for our local governments first. It's driven by schools. About 2/3 of property taxes are for schools. And the total amount they're collecting every year grows by a few percentage points every year. And assessments come in terms of determining each person's share of that levy, that budget that's already been predetermined. So what that means for your average property holder like you, Tom, or anyone else out there watching is that it doesn't matter just how you're assessed. It matters how other people are assessed. How other people are assessed affects you, because you're all dividing up that levy, the amount of property tax that has to be collected amongst everyone. So it is kind of like people have compared it to a zero-sum game. Your share of total assessed value in the community that you're in is your share of that levy. So that's why our job is very important in terms of making sure we get our values accurate, not over or under estimating, because it affects everyone else. So that's why we're laser focused on making sure that we're using good data to stay on top of markets and make sure that we're pricing from the most humble property to the most expensive property, everyone in line with the market, and that it's transparent and we're accountable and it's uniform. So deceptively simple just to estimate the value of properties, but that's our job.
I'd love to, since you're on our episode 151 originally, Assessor, I've told so many people that your role, your office is more to be mathematicians than it is to be a governing body, because you guys are really taking your hand at something and you have to basically figure out in a mathematical way how it's to make it work. And that was probably the biggest takeaway I had from our recording, and I'd love to share that fact with people.
Sure. And some people introduce me as the tax man. Well, that's actually not true. We don't determine how much tax we're collecting. The decisions that we make don't change how much tax is collected in total. Our job is about equity, estimating the value of properties so that each person's share of the total amount that's collected is fair and accurate.
So in theory, if I know my neighbor put a kitchen in, I want you guys to know, right?
That's right.
It's a zero-sum game over here.
Right. And if you see...
I like my neighbors. I don't do that.
Favors to one group, you don't think, oh, good for that group. You think, hey, man, what you're forcing us all more to pay more for that person. So making sure that we're aligned with the market, doing it uniformly, treating everyone fairly, walking humbly when we don't get our estimates of value right. That's sort of I think that is the key to this job and to doing it well for you.
Awesome. No, that's a great overview there, and that helps level set. And then Stacie, give us a history of Class 9, because I believe that was the whole genesis of the Affordable Housing Special Assessment Program that we're about to dive into.
Yeah, so Cook County, for a long time, I'd say 25 years or more, has had a mechanism for a long time. It was called Class 9, a mechanism to encourage affordable rental housing. And the Class 9 program, again, was around for a very long time. But about 12 years ago, the structure of assessments in Cook County changed. And so the Class 9 program, a lot of owners relied on because they really appreciated, with a very simple set of requirements, that they invest in their property and that they keep some portion of units affordable. People appreciated that if you met those requirements, that you got a reduction on your assessed valuation. And so that was a really strong program until this structural change occurred that I won't get into the detail on. But believe me when I say, after that occurred, the Class 9 program became much less predictable in terms of what the effect would be on the reduction in your assessed value. And so a bunch of owners from different types of realms and led by a policy collaborative called the Preservation Compact, which is housed at Community Investment Corporation. There's a group of owners who owned SROs, single room occupancy buildings. There's a group of owners, big, luxury housing owners. There were the unsubsidized owners that Community Investment Corporation typically finances. the affordable subsidized owners, they were all very aware that this Class 9 program had lost their value, and they all wanted a new program that would encourage affordability, encourage investment, and most importantly, if you met those requirements, again, provide some kind of assessed valuation reduction. So all these groups got together under the Preservation Compact who said, hey, don't go off in different directions trying to get new state legislation. Let's all work together as rental housers and community advocates. And we ended up working with Assessor Kaegi's office as well in the later years. Let's all work together to come up with a new program that, again, you invest in your property, you hold some units affordable, you get a reduction in your assessed value. So it took a very long time for this policy to work, but with all of these partners coming together, we did get that legislation passed, and Assessor Kaegi out of the box and his team put together a real program design that isn't just sort of baseline, it's doing what the legislation says. They put together a strong enough program so that it's easier to apply than the old program, and they're really helping people apply and make it happen and make it have an impact on our properties.
Well, and Stacie, thanks for that shout out. And just to build on your comments there from my perspective as an elected official, seeing how this all came together, it was such a wide spectrum of groups. It was advocates for affordable housing. It was people who see the need for community development where there's been a shortage of affordable housing. So many different groups coming together. And this process was a reminder that, our property tax code and assessments, the way assessment policy works, expresses the values and priorities of the people of the state. And this is really how this law came to be, because we recognize that when you're not charging market rates for apartment buildings, you are sacrificing the earning power of that building, and it should be reflected in your assessment. And it creates a very transparent, clear process. And also as part of the process, really encourages, incentivizes the development of market rate housing, especially in places where there hasn't been enough of it. Affordable housing where there hasn't been enough of it. And gotten a unanimous vote out of the General Assembly, but that only comes with a lot of hard work to get to that point. And Stacie was there to witness it all, and even before I came on the scene.
Huge collaboration. And I don't think a lot of people give the appreciation for that and the effort. Collaboration takes effort, right? And I think the collaboration that I just heard in your guys' response is amazing. And knowing both you guys, I do know some of the behind the scenes stuff, but how long have the CIC and the Assessor, how long have you guys been closely working together? It might even go before each of you.
What I can say for my part, it was even before I was elected. During our transition, we started having these conversations with advocates and policymakers. But Stacie, you've been at it even longer.
Yeah, I would say in 2008 was actually when this collaboration that I called the Preservation Compact, so that's been around since then. The assessor at the time really wanted to work with rental housing partners and stakeholders to make sure that the assessor's office was part of the solution and not part of the problem. And so really the partnership has gone back a long time. I'm glad you asked, Mark, because again, CIC borrowers were a really big part in making sure that we're paying attention to not just kind of the big developers that everyone pays attention to downtown or the subsidized developers that sometimes get all the attention. We really wanted to make sure that those other guys were also included in the discussion, that the CIC borrowers who own the vast majority of the affordable rental in the city and the county.
So Stacie, you might be sitting here saying, hey, well, I invest in A-class neighborhoods. Is this program for me? Right? From what you're saying, this can be worked across a lot of different ways. Is that correct?
Yeah, again, that is the beauty of having so many partners at the table when we came up with the legislation. This works in higher cost markets. It works in lower cost markets. It works in suburban Cook County. It works in the city of Chicago. And the way this is structured is it's sort of like you choose your own adventure. Whatever works for you. If you're at a higher cost market, you probably are going to look for a lower threshold of affordability. If you're in a lower cost market where the rents are already affordable, you'll probably choose a higher threshold of affordability, and then you meet the investment requirements depending. But it's really across the board. And I think sometimes people presume that this program is only for, the big subsidized developers or the big downtown developers, when really, even if you already own one of these buildings, you are going to qualify if you do your investment and you hold the units as affordable.
I love how you change your voice when you go big time developers. I love that.
So real quick, you use the word affordable a lot here. What does that mean? Like, I'll throw it over to the assessor. If you want to just give us the definition, we're saying affordable. What does that mean for someone who's, just thinking, does that mean I have to do X, Y, Z?
Sure. The baseline here is thinking about what is the area median income for a typical household, and what the way the law works is that maximum rent is 60% of the area median income, or AMI, and that is basically recognizing that we have a giant population of folks who don't make the median, who also need access to housing. And so and depending on where the area median income is, from neighborhood to neighborhood, it can differ. One of the tiers that is in the law are what we call low affordability communities. So it's areas in the West Loop and the Central Business District where the area median income might be higher, but again, it's providing housing that's affordable enough that being 60% or below that area median income puts you in the target range for renting one of these units, and you can afford to do it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how many different areas or measurements are there for income? Is it broken down by like townships, or is it totally different the way those areas are broken up?
It depends on which area you're in, which municipality you're in. I believe in the suburbs it's by municipality, and in the city of Chicago, it's pretty granular. It's more granular than by township. It's by neighborhood.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of different.
I mean, I'm sorry. I just want to give the brass tacks, right? So
bring it on.
When we think about affordability, just from the rental perspective, because I agree with everything Assessor Kaegi said, but in terms of the rents and in terms of the family earnings, 60% of the area median income for the Chicago metro area, which of course includes Cook County, for a family with one person is $46,000. For a family of four, that's $66,000. And rents that are affordable to those folks for one bedroom is about $1,200. For a two bedroom, that's about $1,400. So that just gives you again, it really varies if you're, looking neighborhood by neighborhood, but those are the numbers that pretty much apply in Cook County when it comes down to rents and families.
Right. And when you present it that way, Stacie, you can really see why this is so necessary, because market rents it's going to be out of reach for people making those kinds of incomes. And so if you are building housing that is taking folks renting at that level, you're sacrificing the earning power of the building. And that's why we needed the genesis of this program to encourage construction to build these kinds of units, or not only construction but also renovation.
Reservation. That's right. Your existing building, just do that investment, hold those rents affordable, and you're a winner.
Yep. So real quick, let me just run through examples to make this real for the listeners. You own an 8-unit building. Let's say the area median income is exactly what you laid out, Stacie. You've invested X amount of dollars into the building that you can prove, and we can talk about the different tiers and so forth. But even the lowest tier, you just need 15% of your overall tenants to be at that number that you just listed, right? You don't need a whole building where rents are undervalued. You need just in an 8-unit building, you need 2 tenants, paying $1,400 for a 2-bed or $1,100 for a 1-bed in this example, and your tax assessment the assessed value will be dropped by 25% in this lowest tier. Is that accurate? Did I lay that out correctly?
That's exactly right. So that's what we call the 50%.
That's huge. That's you actually make more money this way. You help someone in the affordability process, but you actually will be more profitable this way.
Right. It is NPV positive for developers, while recognizing that, hey, if you've sacrificed the earning power of the building, that's why we're reducing the assessment level of the building. So yes, that's exactly right. That's what we call the 15% tier. There's another 35% tier where if you have at least 35% of the dwelling units maintained as affordable, it results in a 35% reduction of assessed value. And again, you can see for those folks out there who are financially astute, you can also see how this is value accretive to a building that you might have and might encourage you to renovate or construct a building of this type, which is so needed.
Yeah, I'll just point out two things there. Like you're a person with an 8 unit that might have 2 gardens, or a 6 flat with 2 gardens. Like those rents tend to just naturally be lower in rent. Or when you're looking at a building that's got half 1 bedrooms, you're probably more likely fall into that tier as well to qualify here. So this is huge for a couple different approaches.
Right. And you can also see how that this is, there's quite a lot of mobility in terms of geographic jurisdiction where this could be compelling. It's not only in the city or the central business district or other higher income communities, but it also you can see how it can also be applicable, widely applicable to many different types of communities that we have in Cook County. That's why we see enrollments in not only in the North Shore, but also in the Southland. And this is exactly the intended effect, so that we're stimulating the addition of affordable housing rental stock everywhere.
So we've probably piqued some interest here. Let's talk about actual tactically getting this done. So I believe the one requirement, it's got to be a 7-unit building or higher. Is that correct?
That's right. It must be 7 units or higher.
Okay. So if you have a 3-unit, next time you'll purchase something larger, this will apply to you, but it won't apply to your smaller one now. And then what is the actual process, right? I've personally seen this from your webinars, but for someone who hasn't, can you just walk through like, hey, I have a building that qualifies. What do I do?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think the first thing to know is that it's not only for new construction. It's also if you're renovating, if you have a qualifying expense that also qualifies you for the program. So let's start with how we do this. First of all, if you're meeting the investment requirement through new construction or through rehab, if you meet the following thresholds, it's a wide variety of qualifying expenses. They include traditional major building systems like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roof, also energy efficiency upgrades like solar and accessibility improvements. Those are the kinds of things that are qualifying expenses. There's also a substantial look back. Investments made since January 1st, 2015 could help you qualify. We have an explanatory section on our website for how to apply. You can, it will look a lot to some people like the Cook County Class 9 program. There's a 2-part application where you provide proof that you've met the investment requirement. There's an online application, affidavits. It's not paper-based, so it's much easier than it used to be. The assessor's office team is accessible and hands-on. We can give you guidance on what you need to do to get to qualify. We have a director of multifamily housing, John McDonald, who can help you with that. And we have a full team that's dedicated to this program, including on our legal side. There's an email address if you have questions beyond what we have on our website. Our website is cookcountyassessor.com, and then you can email assessor.asap, so AHSAP at cookcountyil.gov, and you can get more information. We have a series of webinars on the website too to walk you through how the program works in detail and then how to apply.
We'll definitely link to all of those lines you dropped there in the show notes.
Yep. And just to be clear, so my understand, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong here. It's any work you've done to the building since 2015. Like it's retroactive. You can go back and say, well, I did the roof 3 years ago. I've done the plumbing, whatever. But anything from pretty much 7 years ago to today can get packaged in. And for that lowest tier, it's $8 a square foot. So if you have a 4,000 square foot building, or you have 4,000 square foot, whatever, 8-unit building, you've only need to spend $32,000 on your building, right? Which is a roof, right? It's not, it's not a crazy requirement.
There's a wide group of qualifying expenses and a lot of things that might be NPV positive on their own, like investing in energy efficiency, like solar, that can get you over the threshold too as a qualifying expense. So this is why we're excited. We think there's going to be even more folks coming into the program as they learn about different ways you can qualify, and how value accretive it can be once you're in it. And we're having really strong demand of people already signing up and being approved.
And there's no cost to like apply or anything like that. It's just your time, correct? Like there's no like
that's exactly right.
And I just have to underscore, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the look back, Tom, to make sure that people realize this is money on the table. If you've done rehab since 2015, you just described what the investment requirements are. For that higher tier, if you're in a lower cost neighborhood and you've got that 35% of your units as affordable, because you're going for that 35% reduction, the investment requirement is $1,250. But even so, you can do that look back. You have to keep your units affordable. You have to comply with this for 10 years. And when you're doing the look back, that's included, so it doesn't start now. It starts whenever you did your rehab. But then you qualify for an additional 10-year term if at the end of your 10 years, you get a clean bill of health from the building department. So this is a really great program. You can participate in the program for up to 30 years in these 10-year increments. And again, that look back is really valuable. Another thing that people don't realize, if you are meeting your affordability requirement with a housing choice voucher, that is perfectly fine if you're meeting that affordability requirement through the Chicago Low Income Housing Trust Fund. So if there's an operating subsidy, a rental subsidy associated with those units, that's also perfectly fine. So I think there are a lot of facets of this program that folks don't necessarily understand. And as I keep saying, it is money on the table for a lot of people, and they just don't realize it yet. So it's
exactly.
great.
And Stacie, building on that, you can see how this can be compelling to several different kinds of groups. So Stacie, you walked through how this program can work really well with tax credit properties, right? Of a wide variety. But you don't need to be in a program to qualify if you have naturally occurring affordable housing without any subsidy. You can still absolutely qualify through those other expenses that you might have incurred. So this is how we're trying to make sure that it's a wide encompassing program that can be sort of all weather, all terrain across any kind of different geographic jurisdiction or type of property or tax credit arrangement.
Is it safe to say that if I have an 8-unit building and I have 2 housing vouchers that I have as residents, that I would qualify under that? Because if they wouldn't be voucher if they didn't meet the income requirement, correct?
If it's based on that 60% AMI or less, that's right. And as long as you have other qualifying elements, yes.
That's huge. I just want to point that out there to everyone.
It's if you have an 8 to 12 unit building, it's almost hard not to qualify unless you've done nothing to the building.
Yeah,
like those smaller footprints, because you only need to spend, you don't need to spend that much money, and then like it's almost a normal building like that. Naturally, you're going to have people close to the affordability line.
Yeah,
right. Like you can make the choice to drop that rent to pick up this, for 10 years to have your taxes assessed 25% below at the lowest tier.
Well, think about this. We always hear landlords complain like, I had a tenant there for 17 years. She's great, but she's $700.
I get to keep her. She's great.
You get to keep her, and you can apply for this. Everyone's got those great tenants that they don't want to kick out, but they also show up at meetings complaining about. So
yes, and you can see why if you're in Springfield, you're trying to have a property tax code and assessment policy reflects the value of the state, that it's nudging us in this direction too to say, hey, as part of our portfolio of renters, if you have enough folks in this category, we think that is worth recognition in terms of how your building is assessed. And that's moving things in a good direction as far as our leaders are concerned in the state.
I just want to point something out to listeners. Right now, we talk a lot about adding value because you don't have time or you can't find a property to buy, or there's a shortage of quality buildings out there, or the lift is too heavy for the ones that need work. Like the time you might spend not finding a building right now, you could put into qualifying and signing up and getting involved in this program. Like this is a total add value play here.
Right. Yeah. Not only do you get the return that comes from reinvesting in your property, but you also get the favorability benefit from being treated and being recognized for providing affordable housing.
Is it transferable? So like if you did it in 3 years, you transfer, how does that work if you're going to sell the building? Is there value there for the next person?
you will have to continue following the those all the qualifying aspects of that property. So you'll have to keep on continuing to sign the affidavits and demonstrate that you're still qualified.
So there's value there to sell in the cap rate if as long as the next person continues on. That's great.
Well, it's great even at that lowest. So I'll use my example. We have the building. If we go through with everything, with the 2 tenants qualify, it'll drop the taxes by about $5,000 in an area where that's a 6 cap, $5,000 for the year. Like that's what just doing this. Let's use that as the assumption. At a 6 cap, that's $83,000 in value. Like the building is now worth that much more because the NOI has changed by that amount, and it's amazing. Like a lot of times when there's we have all this affordability issues. A lot of times, like at the ARO, like it's an us versus them mentality from everyone, right? Everyone's complaining about it. Hey, we need affordability. Or, hey, I can't make my numbers pencil, and it doesn't move as quick. Whereas in this scenario, like as Assessor you mentioned earlier, it's net positive.
Yeah,
like you're not making any sacrifice. We're coming out ahead,
right? And this is why it's so important to just, like you said, put the pen to paper to pencil it out and say, hey, this is actually better.
And I would say, Tom and Mark, you're going to have to testify in Springfield in a few years because the whole point of this is to get you to make decisions to create more affordable housing for our city and our county, right? And so to the extent you're talking about sort of, dollars and cents and, net positive value, but at the end of the day, what an incredibly efficient way to create and maintain affordable housing. It's so efficient. It's not sort of, costing all this extra money because of the investment requirement in the property. The value is increasing anyway. And so the idea that, there's some reduction in the assessed value is sort of like, it ends up being a wash. And so I would just say you guys are making a great case for getting owners to respond to good, well-structured incentives to create more affordable housing without spending lots and lots of very valuable and scarce subsidy dollars from the government.
I'll just make one more program comment here. It's like I was thinking about our bigger buildings and our CapEx projects. And we haven't done a average CapEx project for less than $40,000 in the last couple of years when you get in these bigger buildings, just because of the size scope. You're throwing inflation there, limited on wood, whatever it might be. Like it's hard to do anything for under what would qualify you for this program when it comes to what you're already having to do.
It's been around for a year now. I remember almost a year ago, James Walsh brought this to my attention. So shout out to him because I was like, is this real? And like, that's why I started doing my digging on it. But how's it going? Like, are people responding to it? Is this like Chicago's best kept secret, or are we just kind of late to the game and a lot of people have been applying for it?
The uptake is really strong. So the bill passed in July 2021. The program officially began in April of 2022 for the 22 tax year. And it only was first applied to people's tax bills in the second installment of the property tax bill that people will be getting in the fall. But already in a little over 1 year, we have 671 applications that have been accepted, and they're currently eligible for the special assessment. We have over 100 new applications awaiting approval. The uptake has been strong each month. We see robust interest in demand and uptake. We expect the number of applications to rise after the second installment bills are coming out this year, and they're going to reflect the significant tax savings that providers receive. We recommend that interested property owners submit these applications by September 5th of 2023 so that you can be participating when second half tax bills come out in 2024. That's sort of the deadline that I want to put up in people's minds. Again, we have a panoply of information on our website that you can find under affordable housing, and webinars and many other information. I mentioned already that you can email the John McDonald, or our multifamily director of at our outreach here, and he's at Assessor ASSESSOR.ASAP, so AHSAP at cookcountyil.gov, so that everyone can get signed up by September 5th.
Okay, we'll put it on.
Don't write it down. We'll put it.
Yeah. Don't clear yourself. We'll definitely put it in the show notes.
We'll have it all there for you.
I was going to put in another plug. So Assessor Kaegi, John McDonald is just phenomenal. He's been there since day one when I talk about our partnership. But what Assessor Kaegi did not say is that he's got an incredible staff who are helping with this, John and others. The responsiveness is amazing. We've had owners call us just to say, wow, the application process is easy, it's online, and these folks are literally like standing by to help, really responsive and really helpful. And you're hard pressed to hear that about any government agency.
Thanks, Stacie, because we're trying to go above and beyond, what you might normally expect. We can give you guidance on what you need to be doing to get into qualification for the program, rather than just taking your applications, for example. And we have conversation with people checking in with us. We encourage you to reach out because we want to show you that we're a different kind of assessor's office, encouraging investment, try to provide good service.
Yeah, it's funny you just said this, Stacie, because someone I referred the program to, I followed back up with him a month or two later, and I said, how's it going? Like, what was it like? Not knowing what I was going to hear, but he's like, oh, there's this guy, John Alts, he's over there. If you got any questions, I'm sure the guy will get back to you. Like, to talk about how responsive he was. So that's awesome. I'll second what you said. So
go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, listen, we've talked about everything positive here, and if you're going to listen to this podcast, you're already filling out the paperwork already, and you're trying to figure this all out. And but is there anything we're missing? Is there any downside? Is there anything that's in the fine print about the program that we should talk about here?
Let me add to that too, real quick. You got to do it for 10 years. So what do you do every year? Like, do you submit, hey, this is their income? Like, how do you keep it going after that initial submission as well?
There's an affidavit process that comes with having the incentive to show that you're still meeting all of the requirements of the program.
As government programs go, again, we have heard from owners, this is a very similar process to compliance for the Class 9 program. And it is pretty light touch. This is they're not all up in your business all the time. We need to make sure folks are complying. It's a good public policy, but it's not it's not heavy-handed at all. From what I've heard, it's a pretty simple process. The assessor's office made it simple.
Pretty high value use of your time, considering the impact that you get for just verifying and making sure that only people who are complying with it are getting it. I think in terms of other things you want to think about, like anything else in life, you want to look at what are the alternative uses of my capital? What are the what sort of other alternative uses might I have given the commitments that I'm making here? But I think once you look at it, it pencils out pretty strongly. But everyone should do their due diligence to make sure that they're looking at it. I think in terms of what do we want the policy to have be even more impactful? A lot of the uptake has been in the city so far. We want to see more uptake in the suburbs. We're seeing good uptake so far coming in Evanston and North Shore. We're also seeing this in the Southland, but we'd love to see more interest coming from the municipalities and more properties in suburban municipalities also participating in this. From my vantage point as the assessor, one of the most booming parts of Cook County right now are the western suburbs. This whole area between O'Hare and Midway and Fulton Market is just a tremendous growth market. We're seeing the disappearance of $100,000 and $200,000 bungalows because markets are so strong. We need affordable rental housing in these communities. We're also seeing very strong markets now in the Southland after housing markets have been in the doldrums since 2008, 2009. Finally, people who stuck it out are seeing really good uplift in their housing equity, but we want to see more. We want to see the rental market developing too. And there's one thing that I'd like to see from my vantage point is more uptake in the suburbs.
Awesome. All right. Last question and we'll wrap. What's next for CIC and the assessor's office? Are you guys working on anything else? Future kind of facing question, like anything to be on the look for down the road?
Why don't you start, Stacie, and then I can go to my stuff. I got a long list.
We're just so thrilled that this partnership yielded such great results with the state legislation and the great program that Assessor Kaegi has put in place. I mean, I would say, next up for CIC is making sure that all our wonderful borrowers know about it and apply. and get even more borrowers into CIC with our great programs, so they can learn more about it, and actually so that we can learn more about them. We love hearing about what's happening in the neighborhoods, what borrowers need. We have a lot of boutique programs to serve different niches. So I would say we expect a long and wonderful partnership with the assessor's office. And hopefully, this program endures. It's strong. It's great public policy to create affordability in a super efficient way. And it's great for the owners and the neighborhoods and the families who live in those units.
What I'd add on to that is that we have already created several different tools that are really getting at, one of our key priorities, which is making the whole assessment system more transparent and fair. And the tools that we have out there are really good for underwriting. And I'd love taking advantage of opportunities like this to show what other programs we have besides the Affordable Housing Special Assessment Program to make it easier to underwrite and de-risk a process that has been, frankly, not transparent in previous iterations of this office. So, for example, in this year, we're reassessing the South Suburbs. It's the third year that we're going to be putting up for public display all of the different calculations that go into valuing every single commercial parcel. That includes multifamily housing in Cook County. So pick any property that you know is a multifamily property or commercial property, industrial property. You can go to our website, go to the area where it is, and you can pull down the spreadsheet for how we arrived at the value of that property and every neighboring property like it. So you can see what goes into assessing if you're looking at a 30 unit, maybe building or buying a 30 unit multi-family building in a community. You can see the cap rates and the rents and the occupancy and the expense ratios that we're assuming for all of these. This is more transparent than any other assessor's office in America. So people aren't used to using these tools yet, but they're out there for underwriters to use to say, hey, all right, I know how this property, if I buy it, is likely to be assessed. I can see the sources they're using. That makes it easier for me to make that investment decision and figure out how much capital I want to put at risk or see what my other opportunities are. Similarly, we have good tools to help you estimate rates. One of the things, that I mentioned at the outset in this show is that our rates float in this state because we have a budget-driven property tax system rather than a rate-driven system. So the amount that your localities are collecting in money is predetermined, and the rate is a function of how big is the tax base in your community. Well, when we send out assessments, we now have tools to help you project rates much better, and it also is a good policy-making tool. So if we're considering things like new exemptions or new incentives, this tool that we have, which is called PTAX Sim, can help policymakers evaluate different choices, can help advocates advocate for different choices that we're making about incentives and exemptions. So these are one of the things that we're excited about. It's all with the theme of making our jurisdiction a better place to invest, more predictable, less risky, more transparent, more fair. We want to do more. We're always happy to do more with the community that out there is listening. You guys hosting the show here. Stacie's been a wonderful partner. We always want to do more.
That's awesome.
Good stuff.
I wasn't expecting that much from that question. So that's exciting.
I try to limit myself. I could talk about a lot of other things.
No, that's great. That's great. That's you gave us all awesome stuff. That's a lot to take away. All right, Tom, you ready to wrap?
Let's wrap.
All right, guys, you guys have both been on the show. We've asked these questions, so we'll modify them a little. You guys will each answer them. But keep in mind, our audience is anyone that hasn't bought a building, aspiring to be an investor. It's people that have thousands of units. So your answer can vary. So first off, though, what is your guys' competitive advantage? How has the assessor's office and CIC been so successful in collaborating when others, government groups, struggle to get anything off the ground individually?
I think we're not ideological. We'd love to do this work because we believe in it. We like being useful. And we're at a good time in history to collaborate with data-driven people. Computational resources get cheaper and cheaper every year. There's more and more data. And there are really a lot of good people who like to use this for the public good and not be ideological about it. I love this work because it's not ideological. It's very data-driven. If we do that well, we're going to have more investment around here. And that makes me and my whole team feel useful. And we attract the kind of people who like that kind of work and devoting our lives to that.
CIC is flexible. I would say our competitive advantage and what's kept us going for 50 years is we pay attention to our customers, to our clients, what they say, what their needs are. We've created a lot of, as I said before, niche products that includes grant programs, that includes low-cost interest rate programs, both geographically focused, also focused on different kinds of housing stocks. And we need to make sure, and I think people know, that we want to make sure that our partners and policies are in tune and aligned with both the neighborhoods and our clients. So we try to make sure our programs are in line, but we also make sure that we're in line. We have lots of high-touch folks, whether from our loan officers to our servicing department. They're here to help. They're here to make sure that our borrowers and our clients are successful. And so we always want to hear from our clients, and then we develop and tailor our product offerings around them. And like I said, we're always here to say, here's what you could do a little bit better. Thanks for telling us this. Here's an opportunity over here, whether or not you knew about it. So I think that's our competitive advantage. We have great staff, great loan officers, and in this tough market, in these unpredictable times, we have these interesting programs that maybe people should be checking out that are a little counter-cyclical and could be helpful no matter what your situation.
And you run an energy efficient building, because I just saw the lights go off and you had to move to turn it back on. I love it.
That was awesome.
It's very good.
Didn't break stride either. Nice work, Stacie.
Well done, Stacie. Excellent.
All right. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Chicago right now is you're paid to take risk. You are paid to take risk in Chicago because there's a lot of people who are naysayers about Chicago. People read the headlines, but it's all priced in to what's available out there, and there are really great opportunities for folks who are willing to take the work and look into them, because you get paid attractively to own property in Chicago, and there's a great demand. There's really good upswing happening. Young people don't like to drive, and young people want to move to Chicago because you have lots of great options to live here and work here that don't involve having to own a car. Our weather is fantastic. Our culture, we're a cultural powerhouse. And, I think these are the kinds of things that, are really resonate with people and make it a good place to invest right now. One of my favorite investors is Warren Buffett. And he says that you pay a high price for a very happy consensus, right? If everyone is super stoked about a place, who's going to sell for you at a reasonable price? You're going to find a lot of values out there right now, and there's a lot of upside in Chicago. So I encourage everyone to take a good look.
So what I heard there was investors find people that hate Chicago because you'll get the best deal from them.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be smiling to take their property off their hands, and you'll feel good about it.
No, that's a great answer. And the only thing I disagree with you is weather. I know today is beautiful, but if someone catches this 6 months from now for the first time in the middle of November, they're like, "Whoa, what's this guy talking about?"
Put on a coat. It's all good.
Stacie, how about you?
Two pieces of advice for folks who are thinking about investing. Number one, take CIC's property management training course. Great information, really practical, years of experience go into this. We have a lot of experts who are teaching it. So it's really a great baseline of information. I've heard from a lot of borrowers, Mark included, over the years that have, worked in and out of that class, whether they were brand new, whether they were seasoned. So that's really important. The second piece of advice, of course, call CIC. We'd love to talk to you and talk about where you're at and what the possibilities are.
We make even our remote workers and our local workers take that course because there's just a lot of value, a lot of very good stuff that you just don't learn about until you make the mistake.
Yeah, and on our website, we have a panoply of information that for anyone who's doing due diligence and wants to do research, we're not the only ones. There's a lot of good information out there, and go and take advantage of it. Our county is huge. There are all sorts of communities that are attractive for different reasons in different ways. People are making money from having come in here, and you can be part of this too.
All right, so here's a softball. When you guys aren't crunching numbers or working for the people, what do you do for fun?
I spend lots of time with my family. I've got 3 kids. I got a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and 12-year-old, and I really enjoy their company. I'm into reading biographies, and I'm a big reader.
He stole my thunder. I mean, what am I going to say here? So, of course, love spending time with the family. I've got a 16-year-old and 2 14-year-old boys, and we go thrifting quite a bit, which is super fun. A real thrill when you get a deal. And also, I also love reading. I mean, we did not plan this in advance, but I can't wait to go to bed every night because I get to read.
Yeah, we should do another podcast comparing our picks for reads.
Well, that's the next question here.
Yeah, the next question. It's like Family Feud style, though. You can't steal it. Right. Give us either a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners.
Well, I think everyone's got to read the biographies by Robert Caro of LBJ and the Power Broker, which is
Moses, dude. Yes, I just read
the ultimate urban book for people who love cities. It's about New York, about the most powerful guy in New York who built infrastructure, Robert Moses. He was never elected to anything. As an assessor, I do not aspire to be him, by the way. But it's a fascinating story about urban politics and finance, and people who love real estate will just adore that book, I think.
60 hours is the audio book. It's chopped up into 3 different books. I just got done with the first one. It's amazing story, that guy. Like, talk about the power broker, like getting stuff done, man.
Yeah.
My book pick is a little different, less academic, but wonderful. Whalebone Theater. I just finished it. And it's about a fierce little girl in England, and it gradually gets into World War II and the French Resistance. And whenever I read books like that, I think to myself, gosh, we have it so easy right now. And those folks made such tough choices every day about what they were going to do and who they were going to be. And it's inspiring when, you think about tough choices now, there's really no comparison. So I really enjoyed reading that book.
I forgot what book it was last time you were on. I don't know if it was Midnight Library or if it was one of the, you said something, I followed up on whatever it was. I remember liking it, but that's the problem with the world right now. We don't have problems and we create them. So, all right, cool. Besides yourselves, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to investors as a quality resource.
So wait, a person in my personal network that I recommend?
Who would you refer? I mean, CIC, you could refer a lender to talk to, Mr. Assessor, you can, refer a website, whatever. What's a valuable tool or person you can refer to?
Actually, I would say this, that I work in Cook County, so I have a good perspective on this. You should check in with the county on your investing. The county is sort of an underappreciated resource for the tools that we have and the perspective that we have for helping you make an additional investment. There are several different other property tax incentives besides the one that we talked about here on the show. To get one of these property tax incentives in Cook County, your local village or city will be the first step, but then after that, you go to Cook County to get it approved. Cook County creates these property tax incentives. Our president is Toni Preckwinkle. She's terrific. She's got a great economic development committee under her, and you should present if you is seeing an interesting theme or have a priority or an idea. Come to speak before the county's economic development committee, and I bet it'll be time well spent.
I say CIC loan officers, Tony, Marissa, Chasten, Roz, Tom, and Ken, our new energy person, who will connect you with any energy resource that's going to work. You too can wave your arms around in your office when the lights automatically go off. CIC's loan officers are wonderful, and all you have to do is go onto our website. You can go look at all of our staff. They're all quite good looking. I was just on there, and enjoy is what I'll say.
And building on that, I should make a plug for my own agency. Eric Harmon is our director of commercial outreach at our office. This is a new position focused on anyone investing in any kind of commercial or industrial property, be it big or small. We're speaking to chambers all over the city. He was my classmate at Stanford Business School. He's got a great private investment background, but has also worked for the city of Chicago. these are resources for everyone out there who is looking at making a commercial investment in Cook County to help solve your problems. His name's Eric Harmon. You can reach him at Eric, ERIK.Harmon, HARMON, at cookcountyil.gov.
All right, guys, you have provided a ton of value for our listeners. We will link to all this in the show notes. We got a lot of links. We're making Alex work today.
Yeah.
But is there any way that our listeners can provide value to you?
Check in with us. Talk to us. Talk to Eric. Talk to me. Tell us what's on your mind. And I've found it really helpful. Someone gave me some feedback recently saying, "Hey, Fritz, tell us your vantage point as assessor and what you're seeing this positiveness going on here." And now I'm closing my speeches with that, and it's been great. So that feedback really helps us to connect with others. So talk to us, and we're happy to come to you and bring you more information like this.
I'm sorry to say, Assessor Kaegi and I have the Vulcan mind meld. So I would say, please let us know what's going on. We actually are going to be out with a survey soon. We want to hear what's happening with our borrowers in their neighborhoods, with their buildings, with their experiences with us, so that we can do better. I know everyone hates surveys, but really it's going to help us do better. And we always love to hear about what's happening so that we can serve the neighborhoods and our clients in those buildings and lives better.
I got a survey the other day in the mail, and it was called a value add proposition for your time, or there's some creative way of not using the word survey. So, all right, Chicago Fact, man. This is it. We're done. All right. So today's Chicago Fact, ironically brought to you by Tim Jacobs, Appeal.tax over at KSN.
Good episode for it.
Yeah. We didn't even plan that. So today we're playing for Danny D. Danny D bought a T-shirt a couple weeks ago. It sounds like a DJ. But Danny D, if one of us, so you got me, Stacie, or Fritz, get this question right, we'll get you a $50 gift card brought to you by Appeal.tax.
So if you went back to episode 151, where we originally had Assessor Kaegi on there, we learned he's from Hyde Park. So my question is, I'm going to name 4 residents here. I'm going to name 4 people. Which one of these, at one point or another, was not a resident of Hyde Park? Or put another way, all these were residents of Hyde Park at some point, except, and your options are, Martin Luther King, Marshall Field, Barack Obama, Muhammad Ali. 3 of them were residents of Hyde Park. Which one was not? MLK, Marshall Field, President Obama, Muhammad Ali.
Do we say this out loud, or do we put it in the text?
Market's first shot, then you guys go.
I'll say MLK. I know he did some on the west side. I know he did something in Inglewood, but I don't think he ever was in Hyde Park.
Okay. Stacie?
MLK.
I'm agreeing with the previous 2.
Wow, you guys are smart. I don't know if I would have gotten that one. Nice work, team.
Obama's an easy one. Ali.
That was the gimme. I didn't know Ali was.
Ali lived at 47th in Michigan.
Ali had an amazing house on Woodlawn. You guys got to see it.
Okay. Nice.
Nice work, team.
All right, Danny D, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by Appeal.tax, and we maybe we should double that to a $100 gift card because all 3 of us got it right. So maybe there you go, Danny D. All right, awesome show. Thank you guys for being on here today, listeners. Visit Build Your Team. We've set this up for you guys to have resources that you need at your disposal, so you don't go out and have to test the grounds on your own. Check out Build Your Team at straightupchicagoinvestor.com. Find multiple different resources you can use anywhere from construction to professional services, architects, attorneys, taxing testers, all that to help kind of forward your investments faster. So, Fritz, thank you very much. Stacie, thank you. Both of you guys, thank you very much for being back. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
all.